So let's talk about the function of the kidney as being part of the urinary system. So we already talked about how it filters the blood of nitrogenous waste. So it filters blood of metabolic waste called nitrogenous waste. But it also filters it of toxins and other waste products, like even drugs. And drugs. So for example, vitamin C, if taken in excess, causes excessive amounts of urination, and you're getting rid of the extra vitamin C. So if there's too much vitamin C, your body just gets rid of it. Some drugs like penicillin would be a drug that you actually excrete. Other waste products would be like when we talk about pregnancy, early pregnancy, the embryo is producing a hormone called HCG, and then it goes into early pregnancy, it goes into the mother, and then the mother excretes that HCG, excuse me, and that is what is tested using pregnancy tests. So you pee on the stick, and it's actually measuring this hormone that is produced by the embryo and is being put into the mother's circulatory system. So that is one of the major functions. The other thing, however, is that it is involved in osmoregulation. So osmoregulation is a water solute balance. So when we talk about a solution, like a solution of salt, the solution contains the solute plus the solvent. And in the case of our blood, the solvent and our other body tissues, the solvent is water. So this is water. This could be things that are in solution like glucose, like amino acids, like even proteins, and then things like ions or electrolytes, like ions, sodium and potassium are important ions that we have in our blood. And so osmoregulation helps to regulate that balance. So if you take in a lot of water, so let's say that you decide you're going to drink a lot of fresh water from your tap, what's going to happen is that you might actually dilute the solutes in your body to the extent where you need to get rid of some water, right? So you're going to urinate more. And in fact, it's really important to realize that you could potentially take in too much water. So in the past, people have had issues with this. If there's like a competition to see how much water a person can drink in a certain amount of time, you can actually die from that, because if you're taking in so much water that it dilutes your ions, it actually shuts down your nervous system and you go into a coma and you die. So it's important to realize that excess water is just as bad as, well, maybe not, it's less common, but it's bad like dehydration. So osmoregulation occurs because we can increase or decrease the amount of water that we urinate out of the body. So we can change the amount of water lost in the urine. So lost, we'll put in the urine. So if you don't drink, one of the things that you'll notice is that your urine will get dark in coloration, and that is a sign that you are dehydrated. What has happened is that your kidneys have reabsorbed most of the water that they're using to excrete. Your urine is also going to smell stronger because it's just more concentrated. So that is a really important role that the kidneys play, which we're going to talk about in detail this week. When we look at osmoregulation, that generally has to do with the movement of water. So water can be reabsorbed or it can be excreted. We could also talk about pH balance. and the significant role that the kidneys play in pH balance. So pH is a measure, well, just as a review, this is a measure of hydrogen ion concentration. So that's a hydrogen ion. So that if you have a low pH, then this means that you actually have a higher hydrogen ion concentration. If you have a high pH, it's vice versa. So if my pH is like 8 or 9, then my hydrogen concentration is less. So this has to do with being an acid. And so we can produce hydrogen ions, and we can have excessive amounts of hydrogen ions in our body, in our blood. And so the kidney plays a role in balancing pH in the blood. So pH balance we'll put in the blood. So sometimes your urine will be very acidic, and maybe it will even burn. So like sometimes when babies urinate into their diapers, it's like they might turn their legs red, and maybe it's because their urine is more acidic. Sometimes the urine is less acidic. Maybe it is even neutral, or maybe even slightly, maybe not basic, but it is less acidic. So sometimes it can be like a pH of 4, which is excessively acidic, but it is just a way to balance your pH in your body. So that's a really important mechanism for regulating that pH balance. The other thing that is important is that the kidney produces a protein. So we have the production of erythropoietin, or this can be abbreviated as EPO. This is a hormone that regulates the production of red blood cells. So this increases production of red blood cells. And this does this, the kidney will release EPO when your oxygen levels are low. So it actually responds to low oxygen levels in the blood. And I ran out of room here, so I'm just going to go up here. And I'm going to say another function of the kidney is converting vitamin D into a usable form. So it's the conversion of vitamin D into a usable form. Okay, so we can produce vitamin D via sunlight, our skin, right? Being out in the sunlight, cholesterol can be converted into vitamin D, but we can also take vitamin D supplements. But it's the kidney that converts it into a form that can be used and readily used to absorb calcium and then help to build bone. And so people that are in kidney failure are at risk of not having enough vitamin D, and simply giving them supplements of that particular vitamin D that needs to be converted by the kidney will not help them in that aspect, because it's the kidney that converts it to a form that is usable by the body. And then finally, we're going to talk about how the kidney helps to regulate blood pressure. So blood pressure is the amount of pressure that's exerted by the blood onto the blood vessels. And it is actually the blood pressure that comes into the kidney and into specialized capillaries that forces the fluid out of the blood and into the kidney tubules. So if the blood pressure is too high, then you can actually damage that filtration membrane in your kidney. And if it is too low, then your filtration rate is too low and you're not going to be able to filter the blood. So it's really important that the kidney have a particular blood pressure range that is very highly regulated. And so what better place to regulate it if the kidney needs it highly regulated, then it would make sense for it to be regulated by the kidney. So we'll talk about that when we talk about glomerular filtration rate and how it influences blood pressure throughout the body. So those are some examples of the significance of the kidney. And again, we know why the kidney is important, because when it stops working, when we get renal failure or the kidneys aren't doing what they're supposed to do, then all this other stuff goes awry and we have these major homeostatic imbalances.